Today on DIYMAN, we're going to build a cutting board. But there's one catch. I'm going to do it without using a planer, and I promise you won't be disappointed. Let's start this cutting board today by cutting up our scrap wood to 12 inches long. Depending on the width of your scrap wood, you'll need 6 to 10 pieces. Set your table saw blade 3/4 of an inch from the fence. Now let's cut up 21 pieces that are 3/4 of an inch wide. I'm using 3 different kinds of wood, so I decided to cut out 7 strips of each one. Today I'm using oak, poplar, and walnut. This is just what I had laying around, so we'll see how it turns out. Also, we're working kind of close to the table saw today, so make sure you take your time and go slow. If some of your boards are like these and they're thicker than 3/4 of an inch, just lay them on their side and send them back through the table saw. That'll help us make sure that all these boards are exactly the same size. That way we don't have to use a planer. Let's clean up the table a little bit, then lay out the boards how we want them. As you can see, these boards are almost dead even. That'll save us from having to need a planer and a lot of sanding. For this next part, I'm using an 18 gauge brad nailer and some 1-inch brad nails. On this first board, if you want to put a handle on both sides, only glue about 3 inches from the edges on these first 2 boards. Now we'll just take our time and make sure these boards are really well lined up and attach these with the wood glue and using that finishing nailer. We don't want to see these nail holes, so make sure you're only putting those on the inside edges of these boards. Now I know most people only glue and clamp their cutting boards, but the nail gun really makes it easy to line up these boards perfectly. That way they don't slide all over the place when I clamp them. That's what's really going to eliminate the need for a planer. I know planers can be kind of expensive and not everyone has one. I thought it would be really cool to build a cutting board like this and not use a planer. That way people can see that you can do it and it could still look really professional. Once again, on this board, I'm only going to glue 3 inches from the edge, and I'm also only going to clamp this one. I won't put any nails in it. If you clamp your boards really tight like this and you find that they're warping, we'll clamp some support bracing on the side to make sure it glues straight. Oh yeah, that's much better. I allowed my cutting board to dry overnight, then I removed all the clamps. Let's remove those two rough edges from the edges of our cutting board. On that second board, let's mark 4 inches from each side on the side that we want to handle. Then, let's use a 3/4 inch Forstner bit to drill a hole on the inside edge of both those marks. Now, if you glued the inside edges of this board, you've got a little bit of cutting to do. If not, you may simply be able to push this little piece out. Let's sand a little bit with some 100 grit sandpaper. I'm using a 1/4 inch roundover to give it a nice edge. Now let's sand a little bit more with some 120 grit sandpaper. I did also come back with a final pass of sanding with some 220 grit sandpaper. I wanted this thing to be really smooth. We'll finish this thing up with some butcher block finish. I'll throw that link down in the description if you want to try out this product. You're supposed to let this thing dry for 6 hours between coats. Now I'll sand it down with some 400 grit sandpaper and recoat it. Once it dries, this cutting board is ready to use, and I might say it looks really good too. The best part is, I didn't even use a planer. I hope you enjoyed this build today, guys. Please let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed it and what projects you'd like to see me build in the future. And as always, keep hitting that I believe button.